The quality of your life is shaped by the quality of your decisions. Every direction you choose, every relationship you build, every habit you repeat, and every risk you take slowly creates the life you eventually live. Most people do not fail because they lack intelligence. They struggle because their mind becomes crowded with fear, pressure, confusion, comparison, and emotional noise. In such moments, even smart people make poor choices that later become regret. Clear thinking is not a gift that only a few people have. It is a skill that can be developed through awareness, honesty, patience, and daily practice. A person who learns to think clearly becomes stronger in silence, calmer in pressure, and wiser in uncertainty. This kind of person does not chase every distraction or react to every emotion. Instead, they learn how to pause, observe, understand, and choose with intention. This book is not built on empty motivation or unrealistic promises. It is based on practical reality and the truth of how human behavior works. Real growth happens when a person becomes willing to face uncomfortable truths about habits, fears, excuses, and patterns. That honesty is where change begins. In the chapters ahead, you will understand how thoughts are formed, how emotions influence action, why people repeat mistakes, and how to create a mindset that supports better decisions in every area of life. You will learn how to reduce mental clutter, how to trust your judgment, and how to make choices that align with long-term peace rather than short-term relief. Clear thinking will not remove every problem from your life, but it will change the way you face problems. It will help you become less reactive, less afraid, and less dependent on outside approval. It will teach you how to move with confidence, even when life feels uncertain. A better life is rarely built through one big decision. It is built through thousands of small, honest choices made with clarity and courage. This journey begins with one simple decision, the decision to start the foundation of clear thinking. Clear thinking is the base of a stable life. A person may have talent, money, opportunities, and support, yet still struggle deeply if the mind is confused. A confused mind turns simple problems into heavy burdens and small fears into large barriers. That is why the ability to think clearly is not just a mental skill. It is a life skill that affects peace, progress, and personal strength. Most people believe that bad decisions happen because of bad luck, lack of support, or difficult situations. While these things matter, the deeper truth is that many problems begin in the mind. They begin with assumptions, emotional reactions, fear-based stories, and habits that have never been questioned. A person who never learns how to observe their own thoughts often becomes controlled by them without realizing it. The first truth about clear thinking is that the mind is always active. Even when a person is silent, the mind is often busy comparing, worrying, replaying old pain, imagining future problems, or trying to avoid discomfort. This constant noise creates mental fog. In such a state, people often mistake urgency for importance and emotion for truth. To build clarity, a person must first understand the difference between thinking and reacting. Many people believe they are thinking, when in reality, they are only responding to emotion, habit, or pressure. Real thinking is slower, calmer, and more honest. It involves observation, reflection, and willingness to face facts, even when they are uncomfortable. Reaction is immediate. It is often driven by fear, ego, insecurity, or anger. A person who wants to think clearly must become aware of internal patterns. These patterns are repeated ways of seeing and responding to life. Some people always expect rejection. Some always fear failure. Some avoid conflict. Some seek approval in every situation. These patterns can become so normal that they feel like personality, when in truth, they are often learned habits shaped by past experiences. For example, a person who grew up being criticized may become an adult who constantly doubts every decision. Even when doing well, they may still feel uncertain because the mind has learned to expect mistakes. If this pattern is never noticed, it can quietly control career choices, relationships, and confidence for years. Clear thinking begins when that person notices the pattern and asks whether it is still true. Another example is a person who has faced disappointment and now assumes every new opportunity will end badly. This creates self-protection, but also blocks growth. The person may call it realism, but often it is fear wearing the mask of wisdom. A clear thinker learns to examine the difference between caution and fear and does not allow old pain to define new choices. Another important part of clear thinking is mental honesty. This means telling yourself the truth even when it is uncomfortable. Many people suffer because they avoid honest self-reflection. They stay in unhealthy situations because leaving feels difficult. They delay important actions because facing effort feels painful. They blame others because accepting responsibility feels heavy. Mental honesty is not self-criticism. It is self-respect. It means being willing to admit when you are confused, distracted, jealous, afraid, or avoiding something important. A person who can be honest with themselves becomes stronger because they stop wasting energy pretending. Clear thinking also requires attention. Most people today live in constant distraction. Phones, noise, endless opinions, social pressure, and information overload all compete for mental space. A distracted mind struggles to process deeply. It becomes dependent on quick reactions and shallow comfort. Over time, this weakens judgment and creates inner restlessness. To think clearly, a person must protect attention like something valuable. This means creating moments of silence, reducing unnecessary mental clutter, and allowing the mind time to settle. A calm mind notices details that a rushed mind misses. This is often where the best decisions are born. There is also a deep connection between self-worth and clear thinking. A person who does not value themselves often makes choices from fear of losing others, fear of being judged, or fear of being alone. They may say yes. They may stay quiet when they should speak. They may choose comfort over truth because they do not yet believe they deserve peace. A person who thinks clearly slowly develops inner stability. They stop needing every answer immediately. They become less controlled by other people's moods, opinions, and expectations. They begin to understand that not every problem needs panic, and not every delay means failure. This shift creates emotional maturity and practical wisdom. Clear thinking is not built in one day. It grows through repeated moments of awareness. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you question a fear-based thought, every time you choose truth over comfort, you strengthen your mind. This process may feel slow, but it changes everything. A strong life is rarely built by dramatic. It is built by small, wise choices repeated over time. The foundation of those choices is a clear mind. Without clarity, even opportunity becomes stress. With clarity, even difficulty becomes a teacher. Chapter 2. Understanding emotions without letting them rule you. Emotions are one of the most powerful forces in human life. They influence thoughts, choices, behavior, and relationships more than most people realize. A person may believe they are acting logically, while in reality, they are being guided by fear, anger, insecurity, loneliness, excitement, or pain. This is why emotional awareness is essential for clear thinking. A person who does not understand emotions can easily become controlled by them. Emotions are not enemies. They are signals. They often reveal needs, wounds, boundaries, desires, and inner conflicts. The problem is not emotion itself. The problem begins when a person treats every emotion like a command. Many poor decisions happen because people confuse feeling something strongly with needing to act immediately. Fear is a common example. Fear can be useful because it protects from danger, but fear can also become excessive and misleading. It can make opportunities look risky and healthy change feel threatening. A person may avoid speaking honestly in a relationship because they fear conflict. They may avoid applying for a better job because they fear rejection. They may stay in familiar pain because uncertainty feels more frightening than disappointment. When fear is not understood, it slowly becomes a prison. A person begins to build life around avoidance rather than growth. They create comfort but lose confidence. Over time, this creates regret because the mind knows deep inside that safety without freedom is not peace. Anger is another strong emotion that often affects judgment. Anger can point to disrespect, injustice, or emotional hurt. But anger also narrows thinking. It makes people focus only on what feels offensive in the moment and ignore larger consequences. In anger, a person may say words that damage trust, make choices that create distance, or act in ways that solve nothing. A person who understands anger learns to pause before expressing it. This pause is not weakness, it is control. It allows space to ask important questions. What exactly hurt me? Is this about the present moment or an old wound being triggered? What outcome do I truly want? This kind of reflection turns anger from destruction into insight. Sadness also deserves attention. Many people fear sadness because it feels heavy, but sadness often carries important truth. It may reveal grief, disappointment, emotional exhaustion, or the need for healing. When ignored, sadness can turn into numbness, resentment, or hopelessness. A clear thinker does not run. They listen to what it is trying to reveal. Emotional maturity begins when a person stops judging every feeling as good or bad and instead becomes curious. Curiosity creates space. A person can feel hurt without becoming cruel. They can feel anxious without becoming helpless. They can feel disappointed without giving up. This is what emotional strength looks like. One of the most useful habits for emotional clarity is learning to name what you feel. Many people say they feel bad, stressed, or upset, but these words are too vague. A mind that lacks emotional language often stays confused. When a person says, "I feel ignored," "I feel ashamed," "I feel uncertain," "I feel overwhelmed," the mind becomes more specific and less chaotic. Naming a feeling helps separate it from identity. You are not your fear. You are a person experiencing fear. Another important part of emotional clarity is understanding emotional triggers. Triggers are situations, words, or memories that create intense reactions. Often the reaction is stronger than the present situation because it is connected to past pain. A person who was repeatedly dismissed in childhood may react strongly to criticism as an adult. A person who was betrayed may struggle to trust even safe people. Understanding triggers does not mean blaming the past forever. It means becoming aware enough to stop repeating unconscious patterns. A person who knows their triggers can slow down before reacting. They can communicate more honestly and protect relationships from unnecessary damage. For example, imagine someone receives a short message from a close friend and instantly feels rejected. If they react without awareness, they may become distant or defensive. But if they understand their sensitivity to abandonment, they can pause and recognize that the feeling may be larger than the situation. This awareness protects both peace and connection. Another example is someone feeling intense pressure after making a mistake at work. Their mind may tell them they are a failure and that everything is ruined. But if they understand that they have a deep fear of disappointing others, they can separate the mistake from their self-worth. This creates a chance to learn instead of collapse. Emotions also become more intense when basic needs are neglected. Lack of sleep, poor health, constant stress, emotional isolation, and unresolved tension all weaken. A tired mind feels everything more heavily. This is why emotional control is not only mental, it is also physical and practical. A healthy routine supports emotional steadiness. A person who wants better decisions must create space between feeling and action. This space may be a few deep breaths, a walk, silence, writing thoughts down, or sleeping before responding. The purpose is simple: to stop temporary emotion from making permanent damage. This pause is where wisdom begins. Another powerful truth is that emotions are contagious. The people around you affect your emotional state more than you may notice. If you stay around chaos, negativity, manipulation, or constant drama, your mind may slowly absorb that instability. Clear thinking becomes difficult in emotionally unhealthy environments. This is why protecting your emotional space is an act of self-respect. Emotional awareness does not make life painless. It makes life manageable. It helps you understand yourself without shame and face difficulty without losing direction. A person who understands emotions gains freedom because they stop being ruled by every wave of feeling. They learn that feelings can be felt without becoming fate. Clear thinking requires a calm relationship with emotion. Not suppression, not denial, and not impulsive expression, but honest understanding. This balance creates strength in uncertainty, peace in pressure, and wisdom in moments that once caused panic. Chapter 3. The power of patience in decision-making. Patience is one of the most underrated strengths in modern life. Many people think patience means waiting without action or accepting whatever happens. In reality, patience is disciplined emotional control. It is the ability to stay steady when life feels uncertain, uncomfortable, or slow. A patient person is not passive. A patient person is strong enough to avoid ruining long-term peace for short-term relief. A large number of bad decisions happen because people cannot tolerate discomfort. They feel pressure and immediately want escape. They feel fear and immediately want certainty. They feel loneliness and immediately want connection. They feel delay and immediately think something is wrong. This habit of rushing creates choices that often feel good in the moment, but become painful later. Patience protects people from emotional urgency. Emotional urgency is dangerous because it makes temporary feelings seem permanent. When people are uncomfortable, they often believe they must solve everything now. This creates impulsive reactions, rushed commitments, unnecessary conflict, and regret. A patient mind understands that discomfort is not always danger. Sometimes it is simply part of growth. One of the biggest reasons patience matters is that truth often takes time to reveal itself. In the early stage of any situation, there is usually incomplete information. People make assumptions based on first impressions, fear, or hope. But time reveals patterns. It reveals character, intentions, consistency, and consequences. A patient person allows life enough space to show what is real. This is especially important in relationships. Many people become attached too quickly because they are attracted emotionally or because they fear being alone. They ignore warning signs because they want certainty or comfort. Patient person understands that time reveals who people truly are. They do not rush trust simply because something feels intense in the beginning. Patience also matters deeply in career and personal growth. People often compare their progress to others and feel behind. They see someone succeeding and assume they are failing. This creates pressure to force results. But forced growth is often unstable. A person who chases quick outcomes may choose shortcuts, compromise values, or abandon a meaningful path too early. Real growth is usually slow. It happens through repetition, discipline, correction, and persistence. A person who understands this becomes more resilient. They stop expecting immediate rewards and begin respecting process. This shift creates long-term strength because it builds trust in effort rather than addiction to quick results. For example, a person may start learning a new skill and feel discouraged after a few weeks because progress seems small. An impatient mind may quit and call the effort pointless. But a patient mind understands that meaningful improvement often feels invisible before it becomes obvious. The person who stays steady often reaches results that once seemed impossible. Another example is during conflict. A person may feel hurt by something a loved one said and want instant resolution or immediate emotional release. An impatient reaction may lead to harsh words, blame, or emotional withdrawal. A patient response creates space to calm down, reflect, and speak with more honesty. This often saves relationships from damage caused by temporary anger. Patience also improves self-trust. When you learn that you can survive uncertainty without panicking, you become mentally stronger. You stop seeing every delay as failure and every unknown as threat. You begin to understand that not having an answer right now does not mean you are lost. It may simply mean you are in a season of learning. Many people make poor decisions because silence makes them uncomfortable. In silence, old fears rise, unresolved pain becomes noticeable, and uncertainty feels louder. To escape this discomfort, they fill their life with noise, distraction, and rushed choices. Patience requires staying present long enough to hear what your deeper mind is trying to tell you. Patience is closely connected to wisdom, because wise decisions often need emotional distance. When a person is too close to a problem, they may only see stress, pressure, or fear. But with time, the mind settles and perspective improves. What feels catastrophic today may feel manageable next week. What feels urgent now may prove unnecessary later. This does not mean delay everything. Patience is not avoidance. True patience still acts when action is needed. But it acts with thought rather than panic. It moves with calm rather than pressure. The difference is not speed alone. The difference is inner state. To build patience, a person must train the mind in ordinary moments. Small daily situations become practice grounds. Waiting in a line, dealing with a delay, hearing criticism, facing uncertainty in plans. All these moments are opportunities to strengthen emotional steadiness. Patience grows when you stop treating every inconvenience like an emergency. A patient life also requires trust. Trust that not every answer must come today. Trust that some seasons are meant for preparation. Trust that confusion can clear if you remain honest and steady. This kind of trust reduces panic and allows better choices to form naturally. Another hidden gift of patience is protection from manipulation. People who are desperate, rushed, or emotionally hungry are easier to influence. They may accept bad offers, unhealthy relationships, false promises, or disrespect because they want quick relief. A patient person is harder to deceive because they are willing to wait, observe, and think before committing. Patience creates dignity. It helps a person remain grounded when others are chaotic. It protects peace during uncertain times and creates strength that does not depend on immediate results. Over time, patience becomes more than a skill. It becomes part of character. A strong life is not built by reacting quickly to everything that happens. It is built by learning what deserves your energy, what deserves your time, and what deserves your silence. Patience gives you that power. It teaches you that waiting with awareness is often wiser than moving with fear. Chapter 4: Learning how to ask better questions. The quality of a person's decisions is deeply connected to the quality of the questions they ask themselves. Most people do not struggle because life gives them no answers. They struggle because they keep asking weak, fearful, or dishonest questions. A confused question creates a confused path. A clear question creates awareness, direction, and strength. Many people live on They react to situations based on habit, emotion, social pressure, or past conditioning, without ever stopping to examine what is truly happening. When this becomes a pattern, life starts feeling repetitive and frustrating. A person may keep facing the same relationship issues, money problems, emotional cycles, or career struggles, and wonder why nothing changes. Often the answer is simple. They have never learned how to question their own thinking. Asking better questions is not about becoming negative or over-analytical. It is about becoming honest and intentional. It is the habit of slowing down enough to understand what is true, instead of accepting the first thought that appears in the mind. This habit changes the way a person handles fear, conflict, setbacks, goals, and uncertainty. One of the most damaging mental habits is asking victim-based questions. These are questions that focus only on pain, blame, or helplessness. For example, a person may ask, "Why does this always happen to me? Why am I so unlucky? Why do people never understand me?" These questions may feel natural in painful moments, but they often trap the mind in self-pity and emotional paralysis. A stronger question shifts attention from suffering alone to responsibility and possibility. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" a clearer mind asks, "What is this situation showing me? What part of this can I influence? What can I learn here?" This shift may seem small, but it changes emotional direction completely. It moves the mind from helplessness toward clarity. Good questions create distance from emotional chaos. When emotions are intense, the mind often becomes dramatic. It creates worst-case stories, false assumptions, and unnecessary fear. Better questions interrupt this pattern. They slow the emotional spiral and bring attention back to facts. For example, if someone does not reply to a message for many hours, an insecure mind may quickly ask, "Did I do something wrong? Are they ignoring me? Is the relationship changing?" These questions are driven by fear and often create anxiety without evidence. A clearer mind asks, what facts do I actually have? Am I reacting to reality or to my fear? This simple pause can prevent unnecessary stress and emotional overreaction. Another example is during failure. A person may face rejection in business work or personal goals and immediately ask, "Am I not good enough?" This question attacks identity instead of examining reality. A better question is, what specifically did not work? What can I improve? What part of this setback is useful feedback? This approach protects confidence while still allowing growth. Another powerful area where questions matter is self-awareness. Many people avoid asking themselves uncomfortable things because honest answers may require change. But growth rarely begins in comfort. It begins when a person is brave enough to look inward without excuses. Some of the most life-changing questions are simple but uncomfortable. What am I avoiding because it scares me? What habits are keeping me stuck? What truth have I been refusing to face? What kind of life am I creating through my daily choices? These questions do not always feel pleasant, but they reveal the hidden patterns shaping a person's future. Better questions also improve relationships. Most conflict is made worse by assumption. People assume motives, intentions, disrespect, or rejection without truly understanding the other person. A person who asks better questions becomes calmer in communication. Instead of reacting instantly, they become curious. They ask, what did they mean? What may they be feeling? What is the real issue beneath this moment? This creates understanding where ego would normally create distance. Asking better questions also helps in major life decisions, such as choosing work, ending relationships, making financial choices, or changing direction. In such moments, the mind is often affected by fear of regret, fear of judgment, and fear of uncertainty. Good questions cut through this noise. In important decisions, ask, what matters most to me in the long term? What choice aligns with peace, not just relief? What am I choosing out of fear? What would I advise someone I love in this same situation? Questions like these bring wisdom because they force the mind. The mind often fills gaps with stories, especially when information is incomplete. A person may assume failure before trying, rejection before speaking, or disaster before effort. Better questions expose these false stories. Ask what evidence supports this fear. Is there another possible explanation? Am I making this bigger than it is? This reduces unnecessary mental suffering. Better questions also strengthen self-respect. A person who reflects honestly becomes less likely to betray themselves for approval, comfort, or temporary escape. They become more intentional about who they allow in their life, how they spend time, and what they accept emotionally. The result is not perfection, but alignment, a life that feels more honest and less chaotic. The goal of asking better questions is not to control everything. Life will always include uncertainty, disappointment, and surprise. But better questions help a person meet life with maturity rather than panic. They create inner steadiness because they train the mind to seek truth instead of emotional comfort. Clear thinkers are not people who always know what to do. They are people who know how to pause, observe, and ask the kind of questions that reveal what matters most. This skill becomes a quiet source of power because in moments where others react blindly, they respond with awareness. A better life often begins not with a new opportunity, but with a new question. The moment you stop asking what is easiest and start asking what is true, your thinking changes, And when your thinking changes, your future begins to change with it. Chapter 5. Building a life that supports clear thinking. Clear thinking is not only a mental habit, it is also the result of the life you build around yourself. Many people believe that better decisions come only from intelligence or experience, but in reality, your daily environment deeply affects how you think. A tired mind, stressed body, chaotic routine, and unhealthy surroundings can slowly damage clarity no matter how smart you are. A strong mind needs support, just like a healthy plant needs good soil, light, and water. A clear mind needs restability, healthy habits, and emotional safety. Without these things, even simple choices begin to feel overwhelming. This is why a person who wants lasting wisdom must learn to build a life that protects mental peace instead of constantly attacking it. One of the most important foundations of clear thinking is rest. A sleep-deprived mind struggles to process emotion, focus attention, and manage stress. Many people normalize poor sleep and constant exhaustion, but this slowly weakens judgment. A tired person is more likely to become reactive, impatient, insecure, and mentally foggy. Over time, exhaustion makes small problems feel heavy, and temporary setbacks feel permanent. Rest is not laziness. Rest is maintenance. A person who respects sleep and recovery is not avoiding life. They are protecting the quality of their mind. Better rest creates better patience, better emotional control, and better long-term choices. Physical health also plays a major role in mental clarity. The body and mind are deeply connected. A person who rarely moves, eats poorly, ignores stress, and neglects basic care often experiences more anxiety, low energy, and mental heaviness than they realize. Many emotional struggles become stronger when the body is constantly under strain. Simple physical habits matter deeply. Regular movement, healthy food, sunlight, hydration, and breathing space all affect how clearly you think. These habits may seem ordinary, but they build internal stability. A person who feels physically stronger often becomes mentally steadier because their system is less overwhelmed. The spaces you live in and the people you spend time with quietly influence your thoughts, energy, and emotional state. A chaotic environment often creates mental clutter. Noise, disorder, unpredictability, and constant pressure make it difficult for the mind to settle. This leads to scattered thinking and poor decisions made from overwhelm. A person who wants clarity should create order where possible. This does not require a perfect life. It means reducing unnecessary chaos, protecting routines, creating quiet time, and removing habits that constantly drain attention. Even small acts, such as cleaning a space, creating a peaceful morning routine, or limiting unnecessary obligations, can improve mental steadiness. The people around you also shape your thinking more than you may realize. If you are surrounded by negativity, manipulation, criticism, dishonesty, or emotional instability, your mind may slowly absorb those patterns. You may begin doubting yourself, accepting less than you deserve, or feeling constantly tense without understanding why. A wise person chooses relationships that support peace, growth, honesty, and emotional safety. This does not mean avoiding all difficult people, but it does mean setting boundaries with those who repeatedly create stress, confusion, or disrespect. Boundaries are not selfish. They are a form of mental protection. For example, a person who constantly says yes to every request because they fear disappointing others may slowly become exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from themselves. Their mind becomes overloaded, not because life is impossible, but because they have not protected their energy. Clear thinking often begins with learning that saying no can be an act of self-respect. Another example is someone who starts every day by immediately checking social media, news, and messages. Their mind enters comparison, urgency, and distraction before they even have a moment of calm. Over time, this creates mental noise and emotional restlessness. A simple change, such as beginning the day in silence, reflection, or intention, can create noticeable improvement in clarity. Attention is one of the most valuable resources in life. Yet many people give it away without thought. Modern life constantly pulls the mind toward distraction, endless scrolling, constant updates, comparison, and noise. A distracted mind struggles to hear its own truth. It becomes dependent on stimulation and loses depth. Protecting attention is essential for wise living. This means being selective about what enters your mind through media, conversations, habits, and environments. It means creating space where your thoughts can settle instead of always reacting to outside input. A person who protects attention gains stronger focus, better emotional balance, and more confidence in their own judgment. Routine also matters more than many people realize. A stable routine reduces decision fatigue and creates emotional predictability. When basic parts of life are handled with consistency, such as sleep, work, movement, meals, and reflection, the mind becomes less scattered. This creates more energy for meaningful choices rather than wasting strength on avoidable chaos. Another key part of a life that supports clear thinking is solitude. Solitude is not loneliness. It is healthy space to hear yourself. Many people fear silence because silence reveals what distraction hides. But without moments alone, it becomes difficult to understand your own desires, values, and emotional state. A person who never slows down may live years following pressure rather than truth. Solitude allows reflection. It helps you notice what feels right, what feels forced, and what needs to change. Some of the most important realizations in life happen not in noise, but in quiet moments where the mind finally has room to speak honestly. A clear life also requires emotional honesty with yourself. If something is draining you repeatedly, it deserves attention. If a habit keeps weakening you, it deserves change. If a relationship keeps hurting you, it deserves truth. Many people stay stuck, not because they lack answers, but because they keep avoiding what they already know. Building a life that supports clear thinking is not about perfection. It is about making daily choices that reduce chaos, increase self-respect, and protect peace. This happens through small, consistent actions, not dramatic transformation. A calm morning, a healthy boundary, enough sleep, honest reflection, less noise, more intention. These choices may seem simple, but repeated over time, they change how you feel, how you think, and how you respond to life. A person who builds a clear life does not become free from problems, but they become stronger in facing them. They become less reactive, less scattered, and less dependent on outside approval. They begin to trust themselves because their life is no longer built on constant emotional survival. Clear thinking is not created only in difficult moments. It is prepared in ordinary ones. The way you care for your mind, body, time, space, and energy today quietly shapes the decisions you will make tomorrow. A wise life begins when you stop treating peace like a reward and start treating it like a responsibility. Chapter 6: Breaking Mental Patterns That Keep You Stuck. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to think clearly is not because life is too difficult, but because they are trapped inside mental patterns they no longer question. These patterns are repeated ways of thinking, feeling, and reacting that slowly become automatic. Over time, they start to feel normal, even when they are harmful. A person may believe they are making free choices, while in reality, they are repeating old emotional habits that were formed years earlier. A mental pattern is like an invisible routine of the mind. It can be fear-based overthinking, self-doubt, people-pleasing, avoidance, perfectionism, emotional shutdown, or constant comparison. These patterns are powerful because they often begin as survival responses. A person learns them to feel safe, accepted, or protected, but what once helped in one season of life can later become the very thing that keeps growth blocked. For example, a child who grows up in a critical environment may learn to become overly careful, always trying to avoid mistakes. As an adult, this may look like responsibility, but internally, it can become perfectionism, fear of failure, and constant pressure. The person may delay opportunities, avoid risks, and feel exhausted because nothing ever feels good enough. The original pattern was protection, but now it creates suffering. Another example is someone who experienced emotional rejection and learned to expect disappointment. To avoid pain, they may stop trusting people, avoid vulnerability, or leave relationships early before getting hurt again. This pattern can feel like strength or independence, but in truth, it may be fear controlling connection. Without awareness, this person may spend years repeating loneliness while telling themselves they are simply being realistic. Breaking mental patterns begins with awareness. You cannot change what you refuse to see. Most people stay stuck because they focus only on outside results, while ignoring the thoughts and habits creating those results. They want confidence without facing insecurity, peace without facing avoidance, or growth without discomfort. But real change begins by becoming honest about your repeated cycles. The first step is noticing what keeps happening in your life. Ask yourself, what situations keep creating the same emotional reaction? What kind of people keep affecting me in the same way? What fears keep stopping me from moving forward? What excuses do I repeat when I feel uncomfortable? These questions help reveal the deeper pattern behind the visible problem. Once a pattern is visible, the next step is understanding its purpose. Every pattern serves something, even unhealthy ones. Some protect from rejection, some protect from failure, some protect from shame. The goal is not to judge yourself for having these patterns. The goal is to understand why they exist so you can choose differently with compassion and strength. Many people stay trapped because familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar growth. The human mind often prefers known discomfort over uncertain change because certainty feels less threatening. This is why people stay in unhealthy jobs, relationships, routines, and habits, even when they know they are unhappy. They are not weak. They are often attached to what feels familiar. Breaking a pattern requires discomfort. There is no way around this. A person who always avoids conflict must tolerate the discomfort of honest conversation. A person who constantly seeks approval must tolerate the discomfort of disappointing others. A person who overthinks everything must tolerate the discomfort of uncertainty. Growth begins when you stop treating discomfort like danger. This is where discipline becomes important. Motivation may inspire change for a short time, but discipline creates new identity. A person becomes mentally stronger by practicing different responses repeatedly, not by waiting to feel ready. Each time you choose a healthier response, you weaken the old pattern and strengthen a new one. This process is often slow and uncomfortable at first, because the mind prefers what is familiar. A new pattern may feel unnatural even when it is healthy. A person setting boundaries for the first time may feel guilty. A person speaking honestly after years of silence may feel afraid. A person resting after years of overworking may feel restless. These feelings do not mean the new path is wrong. They often mean healing is beginning. Another important part of breaking patterns is changing your inner language. Many people reinforce unhealthy cycles through the way they speak to themselves. If a person constantly says, "I always fail," "I cannot trust anyone," "nothing ever changes," then the mind begins to treat these thoughts like facts. Repeated inner language shapes identity over time. Clear thinking requires more honest and balanced self-talk. This does not mean false positivity. It means accuracy. Instead of saying "I always ruin things," say "I made a mistake, but I can learn." Instead of saying "nobody cares," say "I feel hurt right now and need clarity." Instead of saying "I am stuck," say "I have been repeating a pattern and I can interrupt it." These shifts sound small, but they create powerful internal change. Environment also matters in breaking mental cycles. A person trying to change while staying in constant chaos, criticism, or emotional toxicity will struggle more than necessary. Growth becomes easier when your surroundings support honesty, calm, and progress. This may mean spending less time with draining people, changing routines, protecting your energy, or seeking healthier influences. Breaking mental patterns also requires patience. A person may understand their issue deeply and still repeat it sometimes. This does not mean failure. Change is rarely perfect. Old habits built over years may take time to loosen. What matters is consistency, not instant transformation. Every moment of awareness matters. Every pause before reaction matters. Every small, better choice matters. A person who breaks unhealthy mental patterns experiences a powerful kind of freedom. They stop living as a prisoner of past pain, fear, or conditioning. They begin making choices based on present truth rather than old wounds. This changes confidence, relationships, peace, and direction. Clear thinking is not only about making smart decisions in big moments. It is also about noticing the hidden habits that shape your daily life. The patterns you repeat quietly become the life you live. When you become brave enough to question those patterns, you begin to reclaim your mind. And when you reclaim your mind, you begin to reclaim your future. Chapter 7. Building self-trust and confidence in your decisions. One of the most important parts of clear thinking is self-trust. A person who does not trust themselves often lives in constant hesitation, confusion, and fear. They second-guess every choice, seek approval for every step, and feel anxious even after making reasonable decisions. This creates mental exhaustion because the mind never feels settled. It keeps searching for certainty that may never fully come. Self-trust is not arrogance, and it is not the belief that you will always be right. Self-trust is the quiet confidence that even if life becomes difficult, you can face it, learn from it, and adjust. It is the belief that you are capable of handling consequences, growing through mistakes, and making wiser choices over time. A person with self-trust feels more stable because they are not constantly looking outside themselves for permission to move forward. Many people struggle with self-trust because of past experiences. They may have made painful mistakes, trusted the wrong people, failed publicly, or grown up in environments where their voice was dismissed. Over time, this can create a deep fear of being wrong. The person may begin to believe that every decision is dangerous because one mistake could ruin everything. This mindset creates paralysis. The truth is that no person builds confidence by avoiding decisions. Confidence is built by making choices, reflecting honestly, and learning through experience. A person who waits until they feel completely certain before acting may stay stuck for years, waiting for a perfect feeling that never arrives. Clarity often comes after movement, not before it. One of the biggest enemies of self-trust is the habit of outsourcing your inner voice. Many people constantly ask others what they should do, not because advice is always bad, but because they have lost connection with their own judgment. They fear responsibility so much that they would rather follow someone else and blame them later than choose for themselves. This may feel safer in the moment, but it weakens confidence. Advice can be useful, but wisdom comes from learning how to listen to yourself honestly. A clear thinker learns to gather perspective without abandoning their own values. They understand that no one else lives inside their mind, feels their emotions, or carries the long-term consequences of their choices. This is why personal responsibility is essential for confidence. For example, a person may want to change careers, but feel afraid because family or friends think it is risky. If they always allow outside opinions to overpower their inner truth, they may stay in a life that looks stable but feels empty. Building self-trust in this moment means listening carefully to advice, but also honoring what feels deeply true about their values, goals, and peace. Another example is someone leaving an unhealthy relationship. They may know deep inside that the situation is draining and harmful, but fear, loneliness, judgment, or regret can create hesitation. Self-trust allows that person to believe that short-term pain is survivable, and that protecting peace is worth temporary discomfort. This kind of trust changes lives. Another major barrier to self-trust is perfectionism. Many people believe they must make the perfect decision to avoid regret. But perfection is an illusion. Life is complex, and no one can predict every outcome. A person waiting for a guaranteed result will remain trapped in fear. Clear thinking means making the best choice with the information available and accepting that uncertainty is part of life. Self-trust grows when you stop making your worth dependent on perfect outcomes. Sometimes you can make a thoughtful decision and still face difficulty. That does not mean you failed. It means life is real. A confident person understands that a hard result does not automatically mean the choice was wrong. Sometimes courage still leads through challenge before peace arrives. Another essential part of self-trust is keeping promises to yourself. Many people lose confidence not because life is impossible, but because they repeatedly betray their own intentions. They say they will change, but do not. They set boundaries, but break them. They make plans, but avoid action. Over time, the mind notices this and trust weakens. Self-respect grows when your actions begin matching your words. Every time you follow through on something meaningful, even something small, you send a message to yourself that you can be relied on. A morning routine, a difficult conversation, a healthy boundary, a promise kept during discomfort. These moments slowly rebuild inner confidence. Clear thinking also improves when self-trust increases, because fear loses power. A person who trusts themselves does not need every answer before starting. They become more willing to take thoughtful risks, speak honestly, and adapt when things change. This creates freedom because they are no longer frozen. It is also important to understand that confidence is often quiet. Many people think confidence looks loud, bold, and always certain. In reality, deep confidence often looks calm. It looks like patience under pressure, honesty in discomfort, and steadiness in difficult choices. It is not about proving strength to others. It is about feeling rooted within yourself. Building self-trust takes time, especially if your past has taught you to doubt yourself. But every honest choice matters. Every time you listen to your deeper truth instead of fear, you strengthen trust. Every time you survive something difficult and realize you are still standing, your mind learns that you are more capable than you once believed. A person who trusts themselves thinks more clearly because their mind is less crowded by panic, comparison, and approval seeking. They become less reactive because they are no longer afraid of every possible mistake. They understand that wisdom is not the absence of risk, but the courage to move forward with awareness. A stronger life begins when you stop asking whether you will ever feel perfectly ready and start asking whether you are willing to trust yourself enough to begin. That decision changes everything, because the moment you stop doubting your ability to face life, you start living with far more peace, clarity, and strength. Chapter 8. Learning to make wise decisions under pressure. Pressure reveals the true condition of the mind. Many people appear calm when life is easy, but become confused, reactive, and overwhelmed when uncertainty arrives. This is why the ability to think clearly under pressure is one of the most valuable skills a person can develop. Life will always bring moments that test your patience, judgment, courage, and emotional balance. The goal is not to avoid pressure, but to become strong enough to meet it without losing yourself. Pressure can come from many places. It can come from deadlines, family expectations, money problems, emotional conflict, health issues, sudden change, or fear of loss. In such moments, the mind often moves into survival mode. It becomes narrow, impatient, and focused only on immediate relief. This is dangerous because short-term relief often creates long-term regret. A pressured mind tends to exaggerate problems. When stress rises, the brain begins to treat discomfort like danger. A delay can feel like failure. A disagreement can feel like rejection. A setback can feel like collapse. This emotional distortion is one of the biggest reasons people make poor decisions in difficult moments. They are not responding to reality, they are responding to panic. The first principle of wise decision-making under pressure is to slow down before acting. Slowing down is not weakness, it is strength. Most harmful choices happen because people move too fast when their emotions are high. A calm pause creates distance between the situation and your reaction. This distance allows truth to return. A pause may be as simple as stepping away from a conversation, taking a walk, drinking water, breathing deeply, or allowing yourself one night of sleep before making a major choice. These actions may seem small, but they create mental space. When the nervous system settles, the mind becomes more capable of seeing clearly. Another important principle is separating facts from fear. In stressful moments, the mind often mixes evidence with imagination. A person may assume the worst before knowing enough. This creates unnecessary suffering and weak decisions. A clear thinker learns to ask, "What do I actually?" This helps bring the mind back to reality. For example, a person may face sudden financial difficulty and immediately feel like their life is falling apart. Fear may tell them they are finished and that nothing will improve. A pressured mind may make reckless choices out of desperation. But a wiser mind slows down, looks at actual numbers, considers options, asks for guidance if needed, and focuses on one practical step at a time. This approach protects dignity and reduces damage. Another example is during emotional conflict. A person may hear something painful from a loved one and feel instantly hurt, insulted, or rejected. Under pressure, the mind may want to attack, withdraw, or make permanent decisions from temporary pain. But wisdom under pressure means giving emotion space to settle before deciding what the moment truly means. This often saves trust and prevents avoidable damage. Another key skill in pressure is emotional regulation. This means staying connected to yourself, even when things feel intense. Emotional regulation is not pretending to be calm. It is learning how to stop emotion from controlling behavior. A person who can feel fear without becoming reckless, sadness without becoming hopeless, or anger without becoming destructive, becomes far more powerful in life. One helpful habit is returning to the body when the mind feels overwhelmed. Pressure often disconnects people from the present moment. They get trapped in future fear or worst-case stories. Returning to physical grounding, such as breathing, slowly walking, stretching, sitting in silence, or noticing your surroundings, can help interrupt panic and restore clarity. Wise decisions under pressure also require values. A person who knows what matters most becomes harder to shake. When life feels uncertain, values become anchors. Honesty, dignity, peace, health, integrity, and self-respect help guide action when emotions feel loud. A person who makes choices based only on temporary emotion often feels regret. A person who remembers their deeper values stays more grounded. Pressure also reveals the importance of preparation. A calm life built on healthy habits, strong boundaries, good routines, and emotional awareness makes difficult moments easier to handle. A person who constantly lives in chaos has little internal reserve when stress arrives, but a person who has built mental stability over time is better able to face storms without collapsing. Another hidden danger in pressure is the desire for immediate certainty. Human beings naturally want answers, especially when uncomfortable. But not every problem can be solved instantly. Some situations require patience, observation, and temporary uncertainty. A wise person learns that not knowing everything right now is not failure. It is sometimes part of the process. This ability to tolerate uncertainty creates enormous strength. It helps a person avoid forcing decisions just to escape discomfort. Many harmful choices happen because people would rather choose something painful than sit in the discomfort of not yet knowing. A clear thinker understands that temporary uncertainty is often safer than rushed certainty. Support also matters during pressure, but support should be chosen carefully. Not every voice around you brings wisdom. Some people project fear, panic, or their own unresolved issues onto your situation. A wise person seeks grounded perspectives from people who are calm, honest, and thoughtful, not simply loud or confident. Pressure can also become a teacher. It reveals where you still need healing, where fear still controls you, and where you need stronger habits. A person who reflects after difficult moments becomes wiser over time. They begin to notice patterns in how they react and learn how to respond better in the future. This is how resilience is built. A resilient person is not someone who never feels overwhelmed. It is someone who has learned how to return to themselves even in chaos. They know how to slow down, breathe, think, and choose with awareness. This kind of strength is not dramatic, but it changes everything because it protects peace in the moments where peace matters most. Wise decisions under pressure are rarely perfect, but they are thoughtful. They are made with honesty, steadiness, and respect for long-term consequences. A person who learns this skill stops being ruled by fear and starts becoming a reliable source of calm in their own life. The strongest mind is not the one that never feels pressure. It is the one that can remain clear when pressure arrives. Because in the moments that test you most, your future is often shaped not by what happened, but by how you chose to respond. Chapter 9. Overcoming Overthinking and Mental Noise. Overthinking is one of the quietest but most powerful obstacles to clear thinking. It does not always look like a problem on the outside. In fact, many overthinkers appear thoughtful, intelligent, and careful. But inside their mind is constantly active, replaying situations, imagining outcomes, analyzing conversations, and creating endless possibilities that often never happen. The main issue with overthinking is not thinking itself, but the lack of conclusion. The mind keeps moving in circles without reaching a decision or action. This creates mental exhaustion because energy is spent without progress. A person may feel busy in their head, yet stuck in real life. Overthinking often begins with fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of being judged, fear of missing opportunities, or fear of regret. When fear is present, the mind tries to create safety by thinking more and more. It believes that if it can analyze everything, it can prevent pain. But in reality, too much thinking often increases confusion instead of reducing it. A common pattern in overthinking is replaying the past. A person may repeatedly go over a conversation, wondering what they should have said or done differently. They may analyze small details and imagine alternative outcomes. This creates emotional suffering because the mind is living in a moment that cannot be changed. Another pattern is trying to predict the future. People imagine worst-case scenarios and prepare for problems that may never happen. This creates unnecessary anxiety and steals energy from the present moment. The mind becomes occupied with imaginary problems, while real opportunities and responsibilities are ignored. Overthinking also affects decision-making. A simple choice can feel heavy because the mind keeps adding layers of doubt. What if this happens? What if that goes wrong? What if I regret it? This constant questioning prevents action and creates paralysis. The person becomes stuck between too many possibilities without choosing any direction. One of the most important steps to overcome overthinking is learning to recognize when thinking becomes unproductive. Thinking is useful when it leads to understanding, clarity, or action. But when thoughts repeat without progress, it becomes mental noise. Awareness of this difference is the first step toward freedom. Another powerful method is returning to action. Overthinking grows in inactivity. When the mind is not grounded in real experience, it fills space with imagination. Taking even small actions helps break the cycle of mental loops. Action brings feedback, reality, and clarity, which thinking alone cannot provide. For example, a person may overthink whether they should start a new project. They may spend days or weeks analyzing risks and possibilities without moving forward. But once they take a small step, such as beginning research or creating a basic plan, clarity begins to appear through experience rather than imagination. Another example is in social situations. A person may replay a conversation, thinking they said the wrong thing or appeared awkward. This can create unnecessary stress. But when they shift attention to present life and engage in new interactions, the importance of the past moment reduces naturally. Over time, the mind learns that most imagined consequences are not as severe as feared. Writing is another powerful tool to reduce overthinking. When thoughts stay inside the mind, they feel endless and overwhelming. But when written down, they become visible, structured, and limited. Writing helps separate real issues from imagined fears. It brings order to mental chaos and allows the mind to release unnecessary loops. Overthinking also decreases when a person learns to accept uncertainty. Life does not offer complete control or perfect clarity in advance. Many decisions must be made with incomplete information. Accepting this truth reduces pressure on the mind. The goal is not perfect certainty, but reasonable direction followed by adjustment when needed. Another key aspect is learning to trust timing. Not every answer must come immediately. Some clarity only appears after experience, patience, and reflection. When a person stops forcing instant answers, the mind relaxes and solutions often emerge more naturally. Overthinking is also influenced by self-doubt. When a person does not trust their judgment, they keep rechecking every thought and decision. This creates a cycle of insecurity. Building self-trust gradually helps reduce this need for constant mental verification. As confidence grows, thinking becomes simpler and more direct. Reducing mental noise also requires attention control. Constant input from social media, news, and external opinions fills the mind with unnecessary information. A cluttered mind has less space for clear thought. Protecting attention and reducing unnecessary stimulation allows thinking to become calmer and more focused. It is also important to understand that not every thought deserves attention. The mind produces thousands of thoughts daily. Many are random, emotional, or repetitive. A clear thinker learns to observe thoughts without automatically believing or following them. This creates distance between awareness and mental noise. One helpful practice is asking whether a thought is useful or not. If a thought does not lead to understanding, action, or peace, it may simply be noise. Learning to let go of unproductive thoughts reduces mental burden and frees energy for what actually matters. Overcoming overthinking is not about stopping thought completely. It is about creating balance between thought and life. A healthy mind thinks when needed and rests when needed. It does not remain trapped in endless analysis. It moves between reflection and action with ease. As a person learns to reduce overthinking, their mind becomes lighter, decisions become clearer, and emotional stress decreases. They begin to experience more presence in daily life instead of being lost in mental simulations of past and future. Clear thinking becomes easier when mental noise is reduced, because clarity is not created by adding more thoughts. It is created by removing unnecessary ones and returning to what is real, practical, and present. A calm mind is not one that never thinks. It is one that knows when to stop thinking and start living. Chapter 10. Developing mental discipline and long-term focus. Mental discipline is the ability to guide your thoughts, attention, and actions toward what truly matters, even when emotions, distractions, and comfort pull you in different directions. It is one of the strongest foundations of clear thinking, because without discipline, even the most intelligent mind can become scattered, inconsistent, and reactive. Many people struggle not because they do not know what is right, but because they cannot stay consistent with it. They understand their goals and values, yet they drift into distraction, procrastination, or emotional habits that weaken progress. Over time, this creates frustration, because intention and action do not match. Mental discipline is what closes this gap. One of the biggest challenges in modern life, the mind is constantly pulled by notifications, entertainment, social comparison, and endless information. Each distraction may seem small, but together they fragment attention and reduce the ability to think deeply. A scattered mind finds it difficult to make strong decisions because it is never fully present. Mental discipline begins with attention control. This means learning to choose where your focus goes, instead of allowing external forces to decide for you. When you control attention, you control experience. Because what you focus on grows stronger in your mind. If you focus on fear, you feel more fear. If you focus on clarity, you create more clarity. Another key aspect of discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when motivation is low. Motivation is temporary and unreliable. It changes with mood, energy, and circumstances. Discipline is what keeps you moving when motivation disappears. A disciplined person does not wait to feel ready. They act based on commitment, not emotion. For example, a person may decide to improve their health. They may feel motivated at the beginning, but after a few days, motivation fades. Without discipline, they stop exercising or return to old habits. But with discipline, they continue even when it feels uncomfortable. Over time, this consistency builds strength, confidence, and identity change. Another example is studying or skill development. Many people start learning something new with excitement, but stop when progress feels slow. A disciplined mind understands that growth is often invisible in the beginning, and that repetition is necessary before results appear. They continue practicing even when results are not immediate. Mental discipline also includes controlling impulses. Impulses are quick emotional urges that push a person toward immediate pleasure or relief. These may include procrastination, overeating, excessive scrolling, avoidance, or emotional reactions. Acting on impulse often creates long-term regret, while controlled response creates stability. A powerful way to strengthen discipline is to create structure in daily life. Structure reduces the number of decisions the mind has to make. It creates routine patterns that guide behavior automatically. When life has structure, it becomes easier to stay consistent, even during low energy moments. Another important element is setting clear priorities. Without clear priorities, the mind becomes easily distracted by less important tasks. Everything feels urgent, and attention gets divided. A clear thinker identifies what truly matters and focuses energy there, even if other things feel more interesting or easier in the moment. Discipline also grows through a person must observe when and why they lose focus. Do they get distracted when they feel stressed, bored, or overwhelmed? Do they avoid tasks that feel difficult or uncertain? Understanding these patterns allows a person to respond more consciously instead of repeating automatic behavior. One of the most powerful habits for building discipline is starting small. Big changes often feel overwhelming and lead to procrastination. Small, consistent actions are easier to maintain and build momentum over time. For example, studying for a short, focused period daily is more effective than long, irregular sessions. Mental discipline also requires emotional regulation. When emotions are unstable, discipline becomes harder to maintain. A person may give up on goals during frustration or avoid effort during discomfort. Learning to stay steady during emotional fluctuations is key to long-term focus. Another important truth is that discipline is not about punishment. It is about alignment. It is choosing actions that match your long-term values instead of short-term feelings. A disciplined life is not a restricted life. It is a directed life where energy is used intentionally rather than wasted randomly. Environment plays a major role in discipline. A supportive environment makes good habits easier and bad habits harder. For example, a cluttered, noisy, or distracting space can reduce focus, while a calm, organized environment supports clarity. Choosing your environment wisely is part of mental discipline. Long-term focus is the ability to stay committed to meaningful goals over time, even when progress is slow or results are not immediately visible. Many people lose direction because they focus too much on short-term outcomes instead of long-term growth. A focused mind understands that real achievement takes time, patience, and consistency. Comparison is one of the biggest enemies of focus. When people constantly compare their progress to others, they lose motivation and clarity. They forget their own path and become distracted by external timelines. A focused mind stays connected to personal growth rather than external competition. Mental discipline also means learning to say no. Many distractions come disguised as opportunities, social invitations, entertainment, or unnecessary commitments. Saying no protects your time, energy, and focus. Without this ability, attention becomes scattered and long-term goals suffer. Another important aspect is recovery. Rest is not the opposite of discipline. It is part of it. A disciplined mind knows when to pause, recharge, and step back without losing direction. Overworking without rest leads to burnout, which weakens focus and clarity. As mental discipline strengthens decision-making, becomes easier because fewer distractions compete for attention. The mind becomes more stable, less reactive, and more intentional. This stability creates confidence because actions become predictable, aligned, and purposeful. A disciplined thinker does not rely on perfect conditions. They create progress within imperfect conditions. They understand that focus is not about eliminating distraction completely, but about returning to purpose repeatedly, even after being distracted. Over time, mental discipline transforms identity. A person begins to see themselves as someone who follows through, stays consistent, and thinks long-term. This identity shift is powerful because behavior starts aligning naturally with self-perception. Clear thinking reaches its highest level when supported by discipline. Because without discipline, clarity remains temporary. Thoughts may be wise, but actions remain inconsistent. Discipline turns clarity into reality by ensuring that good thinking leads to good action repeatedly over time. A strong mind is not built in moments of ease. It is built through repeated choices to stay focused when distraction is easier to choose. Through discipline, a person learns that freedom is not doing everything, but doing what matters most with full attention and commitment. Conclusion. This book is a reminder that clear thinking is not something reserved for a few special people. It is a skill that grows through awareness, practice, honesty, patience, and discipline. A person does not become wise in a single moment. They become wise through repeated choices that slowly reshape the mind and behavior over time. Every chapter in this journey points to one truth: your life follows the direction of your thinking. When your thinking is unclear, your decisions become reactive, emotional, and scattered. When your thinking becomes clear, your actions become more stable, intentional, and aligned with long-term peace. You have learned that emotions are not enemies, but signals that must be understood. You have seen that patience protects you from regret, that better questions create better direction, that environment shapes mindset, and that discipline turns clarity into action. These are not abstract ideas. They are practical realities that influence every part of life. The purpose of this knowledge is not to make life perfect, but to make you more aware. A clear mind does not eliminate all problems, but it changes how you face them. You begin to respond instead of react. You begin to observe instead of assume. You begin to choose instead of drift. There will still be moments of confusion, pressure, doubt, and emotional struggle. That is part of being human. But with awareness, you will no longer be controlled by every thought or feeling. You will learn to pause, reflect, and act with greater understanding. True transformation happens quietly. It happens in the small decisions you make every day. The way you speak to yourself, the way you handle pressure, the way you respond to emotion, the way you protect your attention and time. These small actions slowly build the quality of your entire life. If you continue practicing what you have learned, your mind will become clearer, your decisions will become stronger, and your inner life will become more peaceful. You will not need to rush or force everything, because you will trust your ability to think and respond wisely. In the end, clarity is not about having all the answers. It is about developing the strength to face uncertainty with awareness, patience, and self-trust. When you reach that state, you do not just make better decisions. You become someone who lives with more calm purpose and direction. The end.
Kindly subscribe to my channel.